And then about 6 months in, I started to get bad anxiety, worried it would happen again, and feeling of like it's not really fair. I'm kind of tired of telling everyone that I'm so lucky. I'm not lucky. I've lost my career and everything that I wanted to do and I worked so hard for, and I didn't really do anything wrong to have this happen.
Many of us imagine our future with confidence until a heart condition or cardiac event changes the path completely. When that happens, it can reshape identity, relationships, and the goals we once held close. Today on Let's Talk SADS Live, we are joined by Brett MacLean, a former professional hockey player who played for the Phoenix Coyotes and Winnipeg Jets in the National Hockey League. Brett's life suddenly changed when he suffered a sudden cardiac arrest on the ice, ending his hockey career at the age of 23. Brett's story will resonate with any athlete grappling with a sudden loss of their athletic career, as well as offering hope that life can get better after sudden cardiac arrest. Hi, Brett, and welcome to Let's Talk SADS Live. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Toronto. I'm right downtown. I'm a hockey director at Upper Canada College, sort of like Avenue and St. Clair, right in the city.
Good. So you have a long history in hockey and other sports. Fill us in. Like, how did it begin for you? Where did you grow up? What was playing sports like for you as a young kid? And where did it all take you?
Yeah, I grew up in Port Elgin, Ontario. It's a small town on Lake Huron, and from a really young age, I started playing all types of sports. Hockey was always my favorite, but I played soccer. I played lacrosse growing up. In school, I played volleyball, basketball. I had a lot of energy, so I was always active, and all of my best friends loved sports too. So living in Port Elgin, you got to kind of the true Canadian winters. Like I played hockey on the pond, played road hockey out on the ice and in the snow. From what my parents told me as a kid, like there was a stick in my hand all the time. I just always had a love for the game and watched on TV and memorized every player, and it was a big part of my childhood, and then started playing locally in Port Elgin as a young kid and had some success and moved on to play AAA hockey, which was for the Grey Bruce region, and traveled all across Ontario and continued to have success at that level. And I think, being from there, there was never anyone from Port Elgin before me that had played in the NHL that had grown up there. So I don't think that it was I'd always wanted to play in the NHL, but it wasn't like I'm going to play in the NHL. And I loved hockey and wanted to chase it. And I don't think I really had a grasp on how well I was doing until my grade 10 year of high school, when I was drafted in the OHL in the first round by the Erie Otters. I think up to that point, hockey was just what I loved to do. And I knew that I was good on the teams I was on, but I didn't really have any concept that doing it as a profession was something that could be possible for me.
Wow. So who were your heroes growing up? What team were you cheering for? Who were you trying to emulate, when you were on the ice?
I loved Mario Lemieux. He was my favorite player. I liked scoring. Even now today, like whenever I do stuff, I like to try and score. When I play with my kids, it's something that's kind of inherent in me. He was my favorite player. I was a Montreal Canadiens fan growing up. From Port Elgin, you're either a Canadiens fan or a Leafs fan, and I was a Canadiens fan, which I've enjoyed over the years, tormenting my friends that are Leaf fans. Moving to the city, I've been in Toronto for 10 years now, so I'm slowly transitioning to liking the Leafs because it is a good environment when they're doing well and to be a part of the city. But I was a Montreal fan, and Mario Lemieux was my favorite player.
So how far did you go in hockey? What was did you reach your goals?
Yeah, I moved on. So I started playing in the OHL at 16 years old, and it was with the Erie Otters. And my second year in the league, I got traded to the Oshawa Generals, and that's when my career really started to take off. I got to play with a guy by the name of John Tavares, who's turned out to be a really good player, and obviously plays with the Leafs and one of the best players in the league for a long time. Had some really good seasons. I led the league in scoring and goals my last year. And was lucky enough to get drafted in the second round in the NHL draft to the Phoenix Coyotes in 2007. And then after 2008, so I was 19, I moved on and signed professionally with Phoenix. Spent some time in the American Hockey League in San Antonio. Got the opportunity to play professionally for 4 years. Got to play for the Phoenix Coyotes in the NHL, live out my childhood dream, and was lucky enough to score in my first game.
Wow.
It was amazing. Kind of a whirlwind. You get a call at 6 a.m. that you're getting called up to play your first game, and spend the whole day flying to get there, and was lucky enough to score that game. So it was amazing, and I got to play briefly for the Winnipeg Jets, and was actually in the lineup for their first game back in Winnipeg after returning from Atlanta, which was, a very cool moment as well. So I got to experience some really cool things through hockey. My time even in the American Hockey League was great. I was a 2-time All-Star, one of the leading scorers. It had a lot of success there. So 23 years old, hockey was looking like a very promising career for me, something I probably envisioned that I would do for the next 10 or 15 years, whether that was at the NHL level or moving on to Europe and getting to experience that lifestyle. But I'd kind of carved out, my dream, really getting to play hockey professionally and do the thing that I'd loved since I was like 3 years old.
Wow, what an accomplishment. And then, of course, you're on our podcast today because it didn't work out the way you had envisioned it. What happened? And can you tell us about why you had to stop playing professional hockey?
Yeah, it was July 2nd, 2012. It's hard to believe how long it's been now. I was training in the summer, and I'd worked out in the morning, done like my normal day of workouts, and was going to skate at night. I would go back to Port Elgin in the summer, and in Owen Sound, I would skate with a group of professional and junior hockey players, and we'd prep for the next season. And it was our first skate of the year. And 40 minutes into the skate, I guess I came down the ice and I made a pass, and then I just kind of hunched over on the boards and slid down the boards and suffered cardiac arrest very suddenly, obviously. And lucky for me, two of the guys I play with, Jason Gallagher and Jason Silverthorne, kind of noticed something was wrong and started CPR. And the more probably important and lucky piece, like worst thing that could happen, but good timing, is a guy by the name of Jay Forsland was there watching his son skate with us, who was a firefighter, noticed something was wrong, and he grabbed the AED and called 911, and the three of them, saved my life. So without them, I wouldn't be here. And then luckily the ambulance got there within 7 minutes and was rushed to hospital in Owen Sound, and then airlifted to London, to University Hospital, and was put in a coma. And then as I came out of that, was in hospital for 2 weeks. And that's kind of where I found out that I had suffered a cardiac arrest and would move on to the next chapter of my life.
Wow, that's unbelievable. You were very lucky that the bystanders, your fellow players, started CPR right away, and an AED was brought and used, and you got to the hospital. I mean, as we know statistically, you're in a very small group of survivors. So that,
yeah, I mean, I think obviously terrible thing to happen, but probably in Ontario, at least at the time, the best place for it to happen. Luckily there was legislation that there's an AED in every rink. Luckily, there was people there that knew what to do, and then obviously the hospital being closed. Like, there's a lot of things that, as bad as it was, that worked in my favor that have allowed me to still be here. So.
And was there any warning signs leading up to this? When you look back at playing hockey as a junior, did you ever have any abnormalities, shortness of breath, fainting, dizziness, anything?
Nothing that would have ever stood out. Obviously, with hockey, they do EKGs every year. A lot of testing, monitoring. We'd have physicals every year. There was no big glaring signs. I guess once as a kid, when I was sick, I had the flu, I had fainted and had a seizure. And, it's like, so that they start, it was just a one-off event. So I never really got tied to anything. And then when you're in the hospital, I remember my mom mentioned that they were talking to the doctors, like, oh, maybe there is something related. But, because it never happened again, it was really hard to determine whether that would have something that was related to this. So there was no warning signs, no family history of any cardiac arrest or people dying from drowning or different things that they asked that potentially could be related to it. So it seemed like an anomaly that this had happened to me.
And so you were in coma for 2 weeks. That must have been incredibly hard for your family. I mean, I imagine they're wondering if you were going to come out.
Yeah, I was in a coma for 2 days.
Oh, 2 days. Sorry.
They put me in a medically induced coma for 2 days.
Okay.
To preserve brain activity and organ function and everything. And then they slowly started taking me out of it. And I was spent 2 weeks in hospital after that for tests and monitoring and trying to figure out what the next step was going to be. When I woke up, I had no recollection that I had played hockey. I guess my mom had asked me, "Do you know what happened?" And I thought I had drowned initially. So I don't know if there was some kind of dream or something while this had happened to me that it made me think that it was my last memory anyways, was being at the beach. So I thought I drowned, and then she said, "No, you didn't drown." So then I thought, well, and I guess my next response was, well, how's my car then? My next assumption was I must have gotten in a car accident. I had no clue or knowledge that I had played hockey. So that whole piece of my memory had been wiped away, and I still to this point don't. People always ask me, how did you feel that day? And I don't really have any memory of it. Other than just kind of, I was like, I assume I must have felt fine, because I wouldn't have went to skate that early in the summer if I wasn't feeling well. Like, it was far enough from camp that I wouldn't have pushed the limit if I had felt off. So I felt like I must have been in a good spot that day that I felt like I could go play, and then obviously it happened. So
yeah. So were the doctors able to give you any idea why it happened? Was there a diagnosis given to you?
No, I don't. I still to this day don't have a clear diagnosis on what happened. I've done genetic testing. My family's done genetic testing. There's nothing that has been shown through that as to what I had. Originally, they thought I might have had long QT syndrome, but that's been disproved. The closest thing they've come to is when my heart was forming as a baby, there might be a heart that didn't fully form that is spongy still. But again, that's still a bit of theory. I've been very fortunate that since that moment, I had one more episode the first year, but then I've been on a beta blocker, Nadolol, since then, and have had no issues. And every time I go to checkups, everything looks great. So maybe because of that, they haven't been able to determine the full cause as to what happened. And I think I've always kind of lived in the assumption that at some point in my life I will have an answer. But if I can keep living a healthy life with no issues, I'd rather not find out than have something keep coming up and know what it is. So
that's true. Yeah. How is it to live without a diagnosis, though? I mean, is it something you're at peace with, or we're still working through? How's that for you?
I'm at peace with it now. I think initially, so going through the stages of it after the first couple months, I was very like, oh, I'm so lucky to be alive. I'm so appreciative of everything, and it was, the timing of it was interesting. Like, the NHL was in a lockout, so my friends weren't playing anyway. So my first 3 or 4 months of recovery, it didn't feel like anything was different for me than anybody else. And then about 6 months in, I started to get bad anxiety, worried it would happen again, and feeling of like, it's not really fair. I'm kind of tired of telling everyone that I'm so lucky. I'm not lucky. I've lost my career and everything that I wanted to do and I worked so hard for, and I didn't really do anything wrong to have this happen. And that lasted about 6 months, and then one day I broke down crying to my parents and just kind of let everything out. I'm not, I'm tired of telling people I'm so lucky. This isn't fair that this happened to me. And it kind of seemed like doing that once for me brought me a lot of peace. I felt like I finally could tell people the truth that I am very lucky to be alive. I'm very fortunate, but like, I also got robbed of something that I'd worked so hard for. And then since that moment, my health has been great. And one of my doctors, early on, he's kind of like, Brett, like, at the end of the day, you could get hit by a car tomorrow. So, I'm not going to sit here and tell you should be doing super risky things, but you got to decide how you want to live your life. If you want to try and push the limit in terms of your activity, we'll give you recommendations. You can't play contact sports because of your your ICD, but if you want to push the limit in terms of your activity and all of that, I think you should do that. And I've kind of lived that way since. I'm super active still. I probably do more than most people that have had heart issues. I get to play with my kids every day. I get to be as active as I want to be outside of being a professional hockey player. So I am at peace with not knowing what has happened or why it happened, because to this point my life has been relatively normal. So it's been positive, and I'm trying to find the positives in all of that, and it's been good.
Take me back to sort of this post-event, after the initial 6 months, and you had this, acceptance initially. What else did you do to help you move on? I mean, it was a huge switch for you. I imagine your identity as a hockey player, your routines, your goals. What else did you do to help cope with this loss and change?
I think one of the biggest positives that's come out of this for me is allowing kind of life to happen the way it happens organically. Like when I played hockey, I would sit down and try and map out, like, okay, I'm going to play in the American Hockey League this year, and hopefully I'll get a couple games in the NHL next year, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and if that doesn't work out, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go play in Europe, and I tried to map out what the next 15 years of my life would look like, and a lot of it is just guessing, and then you're kind of stressing yourself out, and so I decided I wanted to go back to school, and I had no idea where I would want to go to school. I'd done well in school and finished my high school and done all, but I had kind of put post-secondary education on the back burner while I was professional, and I knew I could get into university, but I didn't know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to take, and I basically decided on the University of Waterloo because my brother was at Laurier and I wanted to be in the same city as him, and I had some good friends in Waterloo, and so I determined that's where I was going to go. And then I found at the University of Waterloo they had a sports business program, so I'm like, well, this sounds interesting, I'll take that. And again, still had no idea what I wanted to do. And then as I went to the school, the head coach of the hockey team, Brian Bork, reached out to me and said, would you want to be an assistant coach for the hockey team while you're in university? And I thought, sure, why not? And so that was kind of what got me into coaching. To that point, I thought I would have no interest in coaching. As a player, I thought it would be like the worst profession ever. And so I just decided to take that on as a chance, and got me into staying involved in hockey, and turned out I really enjoyed going to university and finished my degree in 3 years. And then the next phase of it is I met my wife Maddie, and she was moving to Toronto for a job, and I figured, I'll move to Toronto too. And I started not working in hockey. I started working for Canadian Tire in their corporate office downtown in sport partnerships, and a couple more hockey opportunities came up, and it just seemed like hockey was following me around, and coaching was something I really enjoyed, and I've been lucky enough since that time to find some opportunities to do that as a full-time profession. So I think for me, it's just letting things happen the way they're supposed to happen, enjoying what I'm doing in the moment. I think I'm definitely much more in the moment than I was before my cardiac arrest. I think before that, I always was thinking about what's next. Even looking back on my career, I had so many years of success where, and as an athlete, a lot of times you don't want to be satisfied because you want to keep hungry, but I didn't even spend any time enjoying the great things that I was doing. I was always like, okay, but now I need to do this, or I'm not going to get to where I want to go. Now, I do think I embrace kind of where I am a little bit more, and can sit in that moment and be happy with it, even though I am still striving to do something better.
That's great advice. Yeah, stay in the moment. It's all we have is this moment right now. Tell me about coaching. What does coaching mean to you? What do you get out of it? What do you enjoy about it?
For me, it's been amazing. It's allowed me to stay in the game that I love and that I've loved since I was 4 years old. It's that piece is probably on a personal level the most important part, but ultimately I've loved giving the opportunity to help young hockey players that were in similar situations as me have opportunities to chase their dreams too. It's kind of like looking in a mirror at probably what I looked like at 14, 15, 16 years old. And trying to give them some advice and guidance that maybe I didn't have. Trying to give them some advice from someone that's been through it all, that has reached the highest level, and then lost it too. I think it's just a different perspective that they get to hear from, and but it's been a lot of enjoyment getting to see them have their successes and working through their failures with them, and then ultimately getting to see some of them reach their goals and move on to the highest level. I mean, there's players now that are getting opportunities to play in the NHL and play professionally that I got to work with when they were in grade 8, 9, and 10, and it's a pretty full circle moment for me to get to see that from the other side.
That's great. I'm really proud of that. And tell me about being a husband and a father. How's that? What has that brought to your life?
No, it's the best part of my life. Obviously, I have 2 little girls. Charlotte's 4 and Mackenzie's 2, and then my wife Maddie. And even last night we went to this indoor play gym, and I'm in the climbing center going down the slides with the 2 of them, and I think I'm having just as much fun as them, and probably just as sweaty as them when we leave. And getting to now see Charlotte at 4 starting to find her own passions for sport. She's starting to get into skating this year and soccer and all these different things, and now getting to see what does she really like and what does she want to chase, whether that is sport or something different. But her little personality's coming out and finding her own passions is a really cool experience, and it's given me a lot of joy and happiness, and then obviously being very thankful that I'm still here to get to experience that, and that I'm healthy and don't have a lot of setbacks. To them, they don't really know that I have any issues other than that they felt my ICD and wonder why I have like a robot part of my body. So, other than that, to them, I'm no different than anyone else, and it's great.
Do you worry about them? I mean, it's you don't have a diagnosis, but you worry that there might be something that is yet undetected, and do you take any precautions?
I try not to worry. Again, I try to use that same model that the doctor told me. Same with them, is something could happen to them at any point, and so just trying to enjoy every moment with them. And at this point, we haven't taken really any precautions with them. They're very active and they're very energetic, and there hasn't really been any warning signs. Obviously, it's something that comes to mind is like as they start to get older, do we want to do extra testing? Do we want to look into that? It's conversations we need to continue to have. I try to live my life for me and for them of just taking it day by day and not really thinking about it. Even with my diagnosis, I would say 95% of the time I don't even really remember or think that I have anything wrong with me. So it isn't something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and just trying to enjoy each day with them as best we can and have the most fun that we can.
Looking back now, this experience you had as a 22-year-old and the life you've built since then, you've mentioned about living in the moment. Is there any other, perspectives that you can share about having this, how it may have changed you, versus your friends around the same age?
I think one, it probably has allowed me to not stress as much about small things in life that they maybe do, because they haven't had something this magnitude happen to them. And it does make you realize like you can't control everything that's going on, and all we really can do is enjoy what we're doing today and kind of keep working towards what we want to do with our future. And I think I probably have tried my best to take care of myself health-wise since then. Like I probably eat better than I would have, which is surprising as a professional athlete. But I don't think nutrition was where it is today in sports, even when I was playing 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I try to do whatever I can from the perspective of getting proper sleep, not drinking a lot, eating properly, exercising and all that. So I'm trying to give myself the best opportunity to be as healthy as I can for as long as I can. I think for some of my friends, or people I know, it's like you feel like you're invincible for so long until you're not. I've kind of learned at a younger age that we're not invincible, and so maybe I've put a few more years of time and effort into maintaining my health for the future.
Yeah, the irony is you may outlive them all
Yeah.
since you started these healthy habits quite early. Is there any last words you want to share with everyone?
I think, obviously for me, the biggest message I've always ever communicated to people is the importance of learning CPR and how to use an AED. It's one of those things that, I think if I look back at myself at that time, you're 22 and you're fresh out, you're like, I don't really need to know it. It's never going to happen to me or one of my friends. We're all young, we're all healthy. And unfortunately, it could happen to anyone at any time. And, I'm a perfect example of it. If people didn't know what they were doing, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. And so I've always kind of put that message out there that, you don't really know when it could happen, but you could save someone very important in your life if you know those things. So that's the main one. And then I think other than that, it's just enjoying each moment and everything you're doing, because, it sounds cliche, but life is very short and we don't know how long we have. And all you can really do is enjoy what you're doing in that moment and the people you're around, and trying to foster those relationships as best you can.
That's great advice, Brett. I really appreciate the time you spent with us today on Let's Talk SADS Live. Lots of, good information for people, especially young athletes who may be in that situation now, who are just grappling with the big change that they're going through. I think you're an inspiring role model. You've moved forward with such a good perspective. So thank you very much for spending time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.